Welcome to the Data Hall YouTube channel. In our previous video, we discussed about different data types in R, but mostly we were focusing on vectors in that video. In this video, we are going to focus on data frames because mostly when we do data analysis, we are going to work with data frames. So how do we check the data type within a data frame? How do we change the data type, and so on and so forth? This is what we are going to work in this video. But before that, what is a difference between a vector, or what we also call an atomic vector, and a data frame? A vector is just a combination of different values which are of a same type. So, or it can be a single value. Let's just say we have these two variables called A and B. A contains different values, but they are all numeric. B contains a single value, which is number 5. But a data frame would be a combination of rows and columns. It would be a two-dimensional rectangular data, which would basically be different vectors of same size. Now, when we read a CSV file, when we import a CSV file in R, we are mainly importing that into a data frame. So let's just import this. We have already discussed how do we import a CSV file. You would see a clear difference between how the data frame and a vector would look like. If we click over on the data frame, we would see that we have a combination of different columns and rows, and they all are of same size. They have same number of rows. Okay. And now if we wanted to look into what the data looks like, we could use the obviously data view as we just did, or we can simply press enter by selecting the data that we want to display, and it will be displayed in our console. Now let's come to the topic of this video. How do we know what are the different data types of all these columns? What we do is we use this str function, which stands for structure, and within parentheses we write the name of the data frame that we want to check the structure of. Now it would give us some summary of it would first tell us that it is a data frame. There are different number of observations and rows. Then we have different variables in them, and you see each variable would have a $sign before them. And then it would tell us what is the data type. So this ID is an integer. This race and married is a character data type. Again, wage is an integer, and hours is a numerical data type. We have already discussed what integer, character, or numerical data type means in our previous video. Now let's just say if we wanted to change the data type of this wage. It's currently integer, but we want it to be a numerical data type. So what we do is we use a function called as numeric. So we write the function as numeric, and within parentheses we refer to that column. And how do we refer to? We first write the name of the data frame that we are referring to, which is this by the name of data. And then we use the $sign, and it would just give us the list of all the columns that it have. We are going to work with the wage, so we select wage. So what we do is we are saying that convert this specific column, this wage column, from this data frame, and convert it into a numerical data type. Now if we just run this command, it would not, store it anywhere. So we'd have to tell it where you want it to be stored. So what we do is we use this left arrow sign, which also means equal to, and we store it in the data frame and within the wage columns, right? So this $signs means we are referring to this specific column. So once we execute this, it would, because we already have a wage column, it would just rewrite that wage column with this specific data. So there isn't any changes within the data. only the structure had changed. So we would have to check the structure by using the str function. And we can see that wage previously was an integer and now it is a numerical data type. Now that was one way of doing that, but obviously there are other more easier way of doing it. You see the issue with this type of command, it is normally what we call a base R command. So if you had previously been working with R, you would have been using this type of commands. Now the issue is that we are replicating this data $wage multiple times, and that sometimes get confusing. Rather, we want to use certain functions. So there is a function called transform. What does it? Transforms the data. Now if we look at our race variable, it is currently character, but it should be factors, right? And with factors in R, factors means that these are different categories. And we would want R to assign a number, a code to that category. So there would be values and then value labels. So the value labels would be same, right? White, black, etc. But R would assign a value to these categories. That's what we called converting a data into a factor type. So how do we convert a column into factors is by using as.factors. So we want race to be converted into factors, right? So what we are going to use is the transform function. So we write the transform function, we open the parenthesis, then we specify the data frame, and after comma we specify the name of the variable that would be created, or if the variable name already exists, then it would just replace it. Equal to sign, as factor. So we want to convert this race into factors. So it is currently character data type, so we do not want that. We want it to be factors, and then we want all these operations to be stored in the data frame. Once we execute that, let's check the structure. We can see that race is now a factor with 5 different levels. And the 5 different level means we have 5 different categories. We have others, black, white, and etc. etc. Okay. There is one more way of doing this, and for that we would have to use the tidyverse package. So let's load the tidyverse package. You would have to install it if you haven't installed it, and then you would have to load it. Okay, and within tidyverse we are going to use this mutate function. So we can see that this married variable is also character, but it should be a categorical variable. That is, it should be a factor variable. And there are different factors, single, married, or others. So how do we use that? What we do is we write the function mutate, then the name of the variable, then equal to sign, and that it would be equal to, and as factor married. So what it would do is we would take the data, whatever the name of your data frame is, and then this pipe sign means, and then mutate a married variable which would be equal to as factor married. So this married variable would be equal to this thing, right? And then save this whole operation within this object. So if I execute this, the function would be performed, and if we check the data structure, we would see that married is also a factor variable. Now we can do other type of things. Let's just say if we wanted to check if in which cases the wage is greater than 30, we could simply write data and then select the column greater than 30, and that would just show us false and true values, right? And if there were no values, then it would show us NA. Remember, NA is a missing value, and if you test for certain condition, it would not be false or true, right? It would just remain, the logical condition would just remain not applicable. So again, it does give us these true and false, in the console, but it does not save it anywhere. So we'd have to save them. And again, for saving them, we would have to create a column. So for that, we would have to use mutate. So we take the data, our data frame, and then we mutate. Let's call it high wage, which should be equal to true or false. So this is the condition that should be met. So it would be true or false, right? And if you look at the data, you'd see that a new column had been created. If the wage had been greater than 30, then it would contain the value true. If it is less than 30, then it would have a value of false. So this is again a logical data type. And if you wanted to check the data type of certain column, we can use this isFactor function if we want to check if it is a factor, and then specify the specific column. So that would give us a value of true because race is a factor, but what about wage? Wage is not a factor. So that would give us false. And we can store that into certain column within our data frame if we want to do that. But obviously we would have a same value for all our values, right? For our rows. So I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching this video. Do subscribe to this channel and do hit the bell icon.